Hello everyone, welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, and then we talk about it.
On this episode, we will be talking about Kin, which was just released a few weeks ago, directed by the Baker brothers, and it stars Miles Truitt in the lead role, supported by Jack Rayner, Dennis Quaid, Zoe Kravitz, and James Franco.
My name is Kyle Licht.
And my name is Noah Schollerman.
So, let's talk about it. What do we think about the movie?
All right, so just to start off, I thought Kin was a great concept, and it had a great foundation of like a film, like to be like a really great film. But I thought the execution was kind of lackluster, and I thought overall it was a very average film.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like we were talking about earlier, the last 5 minutes were good. We're going to avoid spoilers and all that for this segment, but we'll just kind of give an overview. So, yeah, the thing I thought was interesting about the plot, I like that it's kind of like two people on the run from this gang of criminals, but then they incorporate this whole alien thing but don't talk much about it, or are they alien? We don't really know what it is.
Yeah, and that was like one of my biggest issues with it, is you have this big, mysterious plot, which is really, I think, that when you're going to watch the movie, that is really the driving force. Like, that's what you want to see, is this mysterious alien thing. And I just didn't feel like the payoff was worth sitting through the whole film.
Yeah.
And they took some odd directions with it that I thought was a little bit stranger. And it felt like it jumped between genres a little too much, and it really didn't stick with any one thing, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a gangster movie, and then it was like a we're on the run movie, and then it was like a sci-fi alien adventure, and it was just like, and none of them really worked, if that makes sense. Like,
that's true.
They took all these elements from so many different genres, but didn't really do any of them right. And I kind of felt like they just stuck to like one or two and did them really well. Like, I thought it was a tremendous idea, tremendous concept. It was super engaging, but I just thought the payoff was not, for me personally, it was not worth it.
Yeah. The one thing that I really loved about it, honestly, was James Franco.
Oh, yeah.
I loved his villain. I thought he was so bizarre, so messed up, and just a unique villain. Yeah, there's actually one scene in specific. He walks into a gas station and pees on the floor because the guy won't let him use the bathroom. And it just kind of shows that as a villain, he kills people, he smuggles and whatnot, but he is also just a bad person.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you. I thought his villain was probably the best part of the movie. I thought his acting was great for it. I thought some of the motivations and stuff, and a lot of like some of the backstory was a little bit wonky, kind of.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to see what it is because it's a spoiler, but like what sets him off on the group. The character, I thought he did such a great job portraying the character with like the intimidation and the weirdness, but the weirdness where it's more of like fear, kind of. It inspires fear, I should say. Was great, but I thought the whole backstory and the character himself was a bit underdeveloped, and I also thought he was unnecessary. Like, he's there in the plot to kind of like drive them across this through a lot of the parts of the story, but I felt like, again, the story would have been so much better if you just dropped that and replaced it with more of the sci-fi mystery. Yeah, 'cause I really felt like that was like the foundation of the film. It just wasn't as much in there, and it wasn't as compelling as like this on the run movie as it was the sci-fi film.
True, and the biggest thing with the sci-fi is the weapon. I thought it was, like, the CG at least was so good.
Yeah, the weapon looked amazing, and a lot of the little, like, subtle things, like, in the film, when he, like, aims down the sights, it's all, like, digital illusions that pop off the gun that create, like, the optical sights on the weapon, and all of that was tremendous.
Yeah, and basically, to give an overview of the weapon, it looks like kind of like a briefcase, and when the user operates it, it opens up into a gun. And you could, like he said, he has the optical sights. It switches back between different types of shots, or what I guess what type of gun it is almost. Yeah,
there's like different modes and stuff that do different things. I will say another standout I thought was amazing about the movie was that I thought the soundtrack, like the lead song in it, I thought it was tremendous. It kind of reminded me of Interstellar.
Yeah.
It had like a similar theme to that, I thought. And I thought it was great. I thought the soundtrack was pretty great. Cinematography and directing, I thought for the most part was very good. For a directorial debut for their first feature film, I thought the Baker brothers did a great job.
Yeah.
And I definitely would be interested in seeing stuff in the future because it wasn't a bad movie.
Yeah. But the execution and the story were...
Yeah, it was just... They could have done better, but I definitely... It's their first directorial debut, too, so it's like... I'd be really interested to see what like their next couple movies would be, and I'd definitely be interested to see what else they continue on to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
There's some serious talent there. Like they definitely seem like they're quality directors.
Yeah. What they did with this film, they almost seem to set it up in a universe. Since it didn't do very good rating-wise, I wonder if it'll actually get a sequel or anything in that universe again.
Yeah, that'd be the interesting part, because how the movie lends itself to, without spoiling anything, it does definitely set up what could be like a pretty decent franchise.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems like the second film would be a lot more compelling than the first film. And I would be very interested to see where they take in the future. And I would actually probably be more excited for Kin 2 than I was for Kin, just because they did such a great job of setting something up. But it's just they spent too much. It's like the classic superhero movie formula, where they spend so much time trying to set up future films that they end up kind of leaving that one to be the bad one. And that's kind of what Kin did, in my opinion, where it's like it's setting up what could be a great franchise, what could be a great universe, but it kind of left Kin in the dust. And that's a really bad issue if that's your first movie.
Right.
Because if that first movie isn't going to do very well because of that, people aren't going to like it because it's just a foundation for something bigger.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to make whatever's bigger.
Yeah, and the thing about that, they gave you way too much at the start. They gave you this family drama, alien story, this criminal on the run story too. But then by the end, still without spoiling, they didn't give you enough. They left it very ambiguous to actually what was happening the whole time.
Yeah, they didn't really clear anything up.
Yeah.
They didn't answer really most questions.
No. But I think that's good for the podcast today. Next week, we're going to be doing Crazy Rich Asians. That should be fun. Talk to you next week.
Have a good one.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, and then review it.
On this episode, we will be reviewing Crazy Rich Asians, directed by John M. Chu, and starring Constance Wu and Henry Golding in the lead.
Yeah, my name's Kyle Licht.
And my name is Noah Schollerman.
So, what do we think about this movie?
I will start us off by saying I thought Crazy Rich Asians was fantastic.
I agree.
I thought it was a tremendous romantic comedy that kind of didn't follow the romantic comedy formula a little bit. And by that I mean kind of like they've been dating for a decent amount of time when the movie starts. It's not like, oh, they fall in love, and it's like this whole thing. Like, they're in a very serious relationship when the film begins, which I thought was like I know there are other rom-coms that do that, but it was like a nice change of pace compared to some of the other stuff I've seen lately.
Yeah. When we were originally figuring out what to see, I thought Kin personally looked better, but it got worse ratings. And this one I didn't think looked as good, but it got really good ratings. And it turned out that Crazy Rich Asians, I think, was absolutely incredible. The trailers did not do it as much of a justice as it should have.
Yeah, I think if anyone's interested in watching the movie and if anyone sees the trailer for it and they think I'm not really that interested in it, I would say just go to the theater, give it a shot, because the trailers don't really do it that much justice. And honestly, they kind of play into some Asian stereotypes, which the film does not do at all, in my opinion. It never felt like that's what they're playing on. And we should probably establish, too, that Crazy Rich Asians is one of the first movies that has an all-Asian cast, Asian director, and Asian producers that was actually made in the West, which...
It was filmed in Singapore for almost all the shots, but it was like created by American companies.
Which is a pretty good precedent, considering I think it's a pretty good step in the right direction for the future diversity in filmmaking.
Yeah, and like we said, there's no stereotypes within the film. It's just very casual with its diversity, and it's not trying to push anything too much, which it did so well with that.
And it seems to, from the reviews I've read from Asian people who have seen the film, say that's very respectful to Asian culture and very real to the Asian culture, which neither one of us could speak upon, but I've heard that it's very close.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, and just, I guess, to run down, we'll give you the basic plot. The main couple in the movie, Rachel and Nick, are dating, like we said, have been dating for a while now, and he really wants to introduce Rachel to his family back in Singapore. They're living in America. And what she doesn't know is that his family is the richest, most popular, basically they're like business pioneers.
They're like the royal family of Singapore.
Exactly, yeah. And she doesn't know that, and it creates a lot of interesting issues when they get there.
I thought that all the acting in the movie was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
The two leads did a fantastic job. The woman who played...
Rachel?
The woman who played Nick's mother in the movie.
Yes.
Michelle Yeoh was, I thought, tremendous and probably was the best acting in the film. And I thought, personally, she was a standout. Her character was amazing. She acted it amazingly. I thought in general, she just knocked it out of the park. And so I've seen her before in some stuff like Strike Back, so it was nice to see her like actually in like a big movie. Yeah. I know she has a history of being, I think she was in some of those Donnie Yen movies.
Oh.
Ip Man. I think she was in some of the Ip Man movies. Okay. But I thought she did a fantastic job. A lot of the supporting characters did a fantastic job. Plot kept you guessing the entire time. Like, it had some pretty good twists, and you're like, oh.
It did.
For a romantic comedy, it was fairly unpredictable, and it kept you on your toes, which is tremendous.
Yeah.
And I just saw in general, I can't speak more highly about the movie.
Yeah, I would absolutely say the same thing about it. Oh, the production value, just in general.
The production value was tremendous.
Yeah. Cinematography, the editing, like we said, the acting, even the music was amazing. I was just genuinely impressed. It wasn't like a traditional rom-com, just standard editing, or even just like a cliche Hollywood kind of editing. It was just really well done. And there was one shot in particular at the wedding scene. They have, what was it? They had like all the benches were grass.
Yep.
And it was almost like they were in a field, although it was indoors. And they had water pour in and fill up the aisles. And I thought that was just such a beautiful looking shot.
Yeah, I mean, the movie was made for $30 million, which I think is around average for most rom-coms. But they really made the movie. They took $30 million and really made it look like it was well above that. I mean, they really outdid themselves, I thought, and just made the best of their resources. And I'm really happy to see how much money the movie's making, too, because as of this recording, they've made about $135 million domestically and about $28 million foreign. So worldwide, they've made about $164 million on a $30 million budget.
That's incredible. That's over, 5 times the amount?
It's around there, yeah. But they've already announced a sequel. They got a sequel approved like a week after. It's based on a book series.
I was going to say we should mention that,
I think the book series is a trilogy, and so they're going to be making the next book in the trilogy for the sequel. And honestly, I think it's just a major step in the right direction for diversity in filmmaking because
I agree.
The movie was made entirely with respect and using all Asian actors and producers and such. And the movie killed it in the box office. It was like #1 for like 4 weeks in a row. And like you said, it made like 5 times back its budget. It's incredible. Yeah. And it's one of the biggest box office successes so far of the year.
Yeah.
Again, I think review-wise and filmmaking-wise, it was just a knockout. It was a great movie.
Yeah, I hope to see it at the Oscars and Golden Globes, see if it'll, earn something. Yeah. But yeah, and with the sequel, they said, a week after it came out?
Yep, got announced a week after it came out because of how well it did on opening weekend.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the sequel. That's good for this film.
I'd be more excited to see what a lot of the actors and directors have to offer in the future.
Yeah, and next week we'll have another movie for you, and we'll let you know how that goes.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep, see ya. Hello everyone, welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show we go to the local theater, watch a movie, and then we talk about it.
On this episode, we will be reviewing The Predator, which just came out a few weeks ago, starring Boyd Holbrook in the lead character, and supporting actors such as Trevor Rhodes, Jacob Tremblay, Keegan-Michael Key, and Olivia Munn.
I'm Kyle Licht.
I'm Noah Schollerman.
And if you don't know, the basic plot of this movie goes something like this.
When a young boy accidentally triggers the universe's most lethal hunters to return to Earth, only a ragtag crew of ex-soldiers and a disgruntled science teacher can prevent the end of the human race. And that's a description according to IMDb.
Yep. And just to let you know, we are not saying any spoilers in this podcast. If you want to hear the full version with spoilers, then check out our unabridged version.
And also, too, worth noting, the movie was also directed by Shane Black.
Yes. And so, what are our thoughts?
I honestly did not like it. I thought it was kind of a mess of a movie. I thought that it just was all over the place. I thought the plot wasn't cohesive at all, which is made worse by the fact that they had reshoots to redo the entire third act of the film. And there was a lot of stuff they mentioned in the third act of the film that doesn't fit the plot with the rest of the movie, which just leaves it to be completely and utterly just uncohesive and confusing.
Yeah, it's after seeing I didn't know what to think. It took me so long to process it. My basic thoughts, I thought there were some really, really solid parts, like the beginning, but so much of it was just so random and weird, especially like when it got towards the third act.
One of the strong points of Predator was that I thought personally was the characters.
Yeah.
I thought the cast was even, in my opinion, I thought was better than the group of people that were in the original Predator.
Yeah, I would say so. Just the team of criminals on the run, I thought they were all awesome. All the characters had so much depth to them. They were very unique. They were unique characters. They weren't your average, people. Like in the original Predator, it was just kind of a bunch of soldiers, and most of them die probably pretty early in the movie.
I thought that I thought something that was really lacking was the editing in the film. I thought it looked like it was edited by college students. There was a lot of random jump cuts. It didn't flow nearly well at all.
Yeah.
And the editing was so bad in some scenes that it was genuinely hard to make out what was going on and what characters are actually like being affected.
Right. Like, this is an example that keeps coming to mind, but there's this fight scene. They're fighting the Predator, about to go on the run, jump in the bus and head out. And then there's a shot of a dog running towards the action, like it's going to either jump in and save the day or jump on the bus with them to escape. But not only do they not show the dog after that, they don't hint to it, allude to it, or anything. It's just they show a shot leading up to something that's about to happen and don't show anything happening. So just, to me, as an editor, doesn't make any sense. If you know what I mean? Just a lot of it was just very incohesive.
Yeah, I agree.
But besides the editing, some of the effects, it's kind of tough because a couple of them were pretty decent, especially towards the beginning. Like with the Predator and with the fight. The action was really good. With that, like, yeah, right there.
Oh, I agree. The action scenes are very well done for the most part, especially early on in the movie.
Yeah, but then, like you're saying with the reshoots toward the end, the action and especially the effects.
It makes me really wonder what the original third act of that movie was because of how oddly disconnected it felt from this that I just don't know. I know they took it out because it did poorly with test audiences early on.
Mm-hmm. I think just like the CGI was lacking. It looked thrown together last minute, like they were trying to rush this new ending in.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's definitely true. And honestly, I thought the directing and cinematography of the movie as a whole was kind of lackluster.
yeah,
No shots really stood out to me. Nothing really seemed like, wow, a highly regarded director filmed this movie. It just kind of seemed like
an action movie almost.
yeah, and it was just shots that everyone would be like, yeah, probably should make it look like it's from here.
Same with the
And-
soundtrack, I would say.
Yeah, the soundtrack wasn't anything really remarkable.
Listening to it, I like it. Listening to it after, but like throughout the whole movie, it wasn't very noticeable.
For the most part, everything was just very unremarkable about the movie.
Yeah,
And I think the plot was like the nail in the coffin that just really cemented how bad this film was.
yeah,
And I would give it I'd give it a 4 out of 10.
yeah. I was thinking a 6 originally, but I might go down to a 5. It's not sitting well the more I think about it, honestly.
And it's just the choices for the most part.
Right.
You see different creative decisions throughout the film, and you're like, I just don't see why they made this decision. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just it's bizarre, honestly. I recommend people watch it just because it is absolutely bizarre. It's a bizarre film.
Yeah, it's really quirky.
Yeah.
I forgot how quirky it actually was, but there's some parts that are decent and that I love, but really it had a lot of potential, but it did not hit the ground.
No, I 100% agree with you. The comedy just completely fell flat and just led to very awkward and uncomfortable scenes, specifically centered around Olivia Munn. Overall, I think we should, I reiterate, Kyle thought it was a 5 out of 10, and I thought it was a 4 out of 10.
Yeah. Check it out, but don't expect too much.
That's a good way to put it. But I'm Noah Schollerman,
Yeah, Kyle liked.
and if you want to see more, check out Makunema at youtube.com.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this podcast, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, then we talk about it. This week, we are watching Black Klansman.
Black Klansman, which is a 2018 comedy / biography / crime movie directed by the famous Spike Lee, starring John David Washington, Adam Driver, Laura Harrier, and Topher Grace.
My name's Kyle Licht.
And my name's Noah Schollerman.
Just to let you know, in this podcast, we don't talk about spoilers. If you want to hear the full in-depth conversation with spoilers, check out Cineplexion Reflection.
On Makunema YouTube page.
All right, so what are our thoughts?
I've seen it twice now.
I've only seen it once.
And I love it. I think so far, I still think it's the best movie of 2018. I thought it completely nailed what they were going for, and I thought they did it in such like a way that anyone could watch and completely understand what the points they're trying to make were.
Yeah, it's definitely up there for my top movie of the year. I have Hereditary and A Quiet Place up pretty far on the list, but Black Klansman's probably number 3 for me. It is a very important movie, I would say.
I would agree.
And I think a lot of movies that deal with the KKK end up doing it very well. Another example, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I believe.
Django Unchained dealt with the
Django
KKK.
Unchained was good.
But I thought that all the acting in this movie was absolutely tremendous, specifically by John David Washington and Adam Driver.
Yes.
I thought they just were they were so incredible in their roles, and you could really tell that like they gave it their all, and they did such a great job together. They did such a great job with their scenes with other people. I definitely think Adam Driver stands out among the movies, like probably the best actor in the film.
Yeah, I really hope he gets nominated for Best Supporting.
I'd like to see it too. And in terms of like a Spike Lee movie, which he has a very specific style that a lot of people you could watch a Spike Lee movie and definitely identify it. I think in terms of a Spike Lee movie, it was definitely toned down.
Yeah.
It wasn't full Spike Lee, but you could definitely still see his influences and his style is still apparent. But it definitely didn't seem like he was going all out, and I don't know if that was his decision or if it was like a studio decision.
Yeah, he's not too over the top with it, because Spike Lee is very quirky. In a lot of his movies, he has a lot of things that don't really make sense, and he kind of just does it because he wants to. And I respect that about a filmmaker, to experiment and do what you want as an auteur. But this movie is not necessarily mainstreamed at all, but it's very concise in what it's going for. I would like to preface this with, I took a Spike Lee class 2 years ago where he watches movies, and I would say this is definitely up there as one of the best Spike Lee films. And actually, Do the Right Thing, Jungle Fever, and Inside Man.
The only complaint I have about the movie were a lot of characters. Their motivation seemed very off. It just didn't really make a lot of sense.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm missing something in there, but I've seen it twice now, and I can say that a lot of stuff just seemingly happens for no real reason other than to add some more drama to the plot, and the character motivations just don't make a tremendous amount of sense. And that was the only thing I would say is like my key complaint that I really have with the movie.
Yeah, watching it, I loved it throughout the entire movie, but there were certain things that I just didn't understand, I suppose, and the whole time I was thinking, I have to watch this again and like really pay attention to the characters. Now, especially watching it a second time, well, you did watch it a second time, but I was thinking maybe the second time I watch it, it'll be different because I know the characters more. But yeah, certain things, like for example, without spoiling anything, the police chief. What he was doing and saying didn't make a lot of sense, and there were a lot of very questionable things with his motives. I know you had that same problem.
Yeah. But I think in terms of cinematics and like directing and such, I mean, it's a Spike Lee movie. No matter how weird or bad some of his movies are, they always look visually incredible.
Yeah.
Especially like the dolly shots and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like
he has a lot of his trademarks.
Yeah, and I think that it looks tremendous, and I think every shot is framed and executed tremendously, and I think it really just shows how great of a director he really is, although sometimes his writing can be a little bit too far out there.
Yeah.
But this one is a lot more grounded, which is why I think a lot of people will like it more than the traditional Spike Lee like following.
Yeah. I love Spike Lee as a director, and I personally think this is one of his best. I'm very impressed. He went through a bit of a recession with his films. This brought him back up as a great director, and I wonder what the next one's going to be. If he's going to make another movie, or if it's going to be as good as Black Klansman.
It'll be interesting where he goes from here. That's overall, I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Yep, 8 out of 10 for me.
All right, well, for any more Cineplexion Reflections, go to Makunema at youtube.com for both abridged and unabridged versions, as well as a variety of other podcasts.
Yeah. And we'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a film, and then talk about it.
On this episode, we will be reviewing The Nun, directed by Corin Hardy and starring Damien Bichir, Tessa Farmiga, Jonas Bequet, and Bonnie Aarons.
I'm Kyle Licht.
And I'm Noah Scholerman.
And for this show, we do not talk about spoilers. If you want to hear the full version, check out Cineplexion Reflection on our Makunema podcast on SoundCloud and YouTube. So, what do we think?
I hated it.
I hated
I'll
it
be
too.
honest. I thought it was a terrible movie.
It was absolutely trash.
It seemed more like a parody movie than a legit horror movie. And it seemed like they threw away every great thing they've ever done with the other movies, like Conjuring and Annabelle and all that. And depending on what you feel about those, this seems like it took any sort of great thing that they established and just threw it away.
Yeah. To give you context, I've seen The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2. I haven't seen Annabelle or Annabelle Creation.
And I've seen the Annabelle movies.
You have seen the Annabelle? Mm-hmm. How are those? Do those hold up?
Nah. I should say, I didn't see the second one. I saw the first one. I
Okay.
forgot there was a second one. The first one was okay.
Yeah.
It was better than this, but it was okay.
Yeah, and I think The Conjuring is great, and The Conjuring 2 is incredible, so this is really a step down. It's supposed to tie into the story somehow, but it's kind of just a backstory to a very minor character, which is I think is interesting that they're doing, but they did it so poorly.
I mean, it was also backstory to the main villain in the second one, though, as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Which I would also like to look more into, but the movie was just all over the place. It was very cliche, relied heavily on jump scares, and just the characters were just cliche stupid in horror movies. They were always alone, exploring a graveyard in the middle of the night, and just all of this other random crap.
And they were just all horrible. The dialogue was horrible. The character development was horrible. None of the characters were that great. The acting wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I would say the only great acting I kind of saw was the other nuns in the convent,
Mm-hmm.
who were still like normal. I thought the acting from them was pretty good for like what they were around, but other than that, it just seemed. I mean, it seemed like you gave a B horror movie on the low end of quality, like an insane budget,
Yeah.
and released it in a very wide distribution.
Yeah, because the cinematography I thought was incredible. It looked gorgeous. They had some really nice shots, and it just looked like a professional movie. But, I mean, that's just the cinematography, though. The editing, I noticed, was kind of bad. There were some shots that didn't match up correctly. There was some of the effects I noticed were very cheesy. Just, like a bad CGI kind of thing.
Like Kyle mentioned before, it relied so much on jump scares. It was literally like every single scene was just random dumb horror cliches to try to scare you with no plot, nothing. There was no suspense, which I think is key to a horror movie, and especially from what you told me about the Conjuring movies, it's a lot of build up for little things, and that's why it's great. It's not over the top. It's more subtle horror, which I think is the best kind. And this just was like, let's just beat you over the head with it. Like every time they walk through a door, someone grabs them. There's literally a scene in the movie where a girl's running through the hallway, and about 4 or 5 times she gets grabbed from different people sticking their arms out through the hallway, and you're supposed to be scared each time. It was like, you're repeating your own thing like 6 times in one scene.
Right.
It was just like unbelievable.
Yeah, and with, like I said, the forced push, kind of.
God.
The nuns, the villain, their only form of defense was just throwing people against a wall, and it happened at one point like 4 or 5 times over the course of 10 minutes, and I was just getting sick of it. Just after the first time, I was already sick of it. There's one scene though that stood out to me. I remember when he was being buried alive in the coffin, and she's trying to dig him out. I thought that was super cool. It's like he's underground. He hears something creaking around him. She's trying to dig him out, but like you said, there's nothing behind it. We don't know why they're there. They just kind of ended up in this graveyard.
It was super fast that they got there,
Yeah, and if there was more context to it, or if it related somehow to the plot, I feel like that could have been a super suspenseful scene.
Well, that was what the big problem with a lot of the movie is. Like, they were like, ooh, it'd be really creepy being buried alive. Oh, it'd be really creepy doing this. But it's like, how do we get these characters to be, like, to that point logically? It's like, nah, fuck it.
Right. I'll
It's
censor
like,
it.
It's like, just whatever. Just throw them in there with no actual build-up or actual lead-up to that moment. It's like, let's just throw them in there with no context or no set-up to it. And it's just, everything is just so out of place, so rushed and forced in. It was...
Yeah. And the characters at that same point weren't justifiable. They weren't redeemable, rather. They didn't do anything heroic. Without any spoilers, they they just were bland the whole time, and they didn't have much development. Like, we had some backstory, but it really wasn't
Very bad.
interesting.
No,
Yeah.
The specifically with the priest, his backstory was just so uninteresting.
Yeah.
And then they showed you about 30 seconds of backstory, but then built the entire film around that 30 seconds of backstory.
Yeah.
And it was just like, are we supposed to be? Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
But so what would you give it?
2 out of 10.
I would give it about a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
It was extremely disappointing because I wasn't like hyped for the movie, but I was decently looking forward to it.
Yeah, I thought it would be at least redeemable in some way.
Well, for more podcasts and more reviews, check out Makunema at youtube.com or on SoundCloud and soon to be Spotify.
Yes. And if you want to hear the full version, check out Cineplexion Reflection. That's our longer take with spoilers and more in-depth conversation. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, and we talk about it.
In this episode, we'll be discussing A Star is Born, which is a fourth-time remake directed by Bradley Cooper and starring Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper, and Sam Elliott. My name is Noah.
My name's Kyle. In this show, we do not talk about spoilers. If you want to hear the full in-depth conversation, check out Cineplexion Reflection, Unabridged, which is on SoundCloud, YouTube, and soon to be Spotify.
Yep.
So, what do we think?
I loved it. I
So
thought
good.
It was fantastic. One of the best movies so far of the year.
I would agree. It's funny that last week we talked about The Nun, and we both agreed that it was absolutely horrible.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yes, and now that we both agree Star is Born is incredible.
It was refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I absolutely loved the plot. I thought it was tremendous. It wasn't, I wouldn't say, like an overly original plot, especially because it is a fourth-time remake.
Right.
But it was definitely done well enough to where you were constantly intrigued and you were constantly engaged, even though you kind of knew where the story was going. And it was just entertaining to see how they played it out.
Yeah. Regarding the plot, I found this movie very similar to La La Land. And talking to someone earlier, they had also brought up La La Land as a reference point, and I think it's both that kind of tragic, kind of sweet story about two musicians who fall in love and all that stuff. And they're both excellent movies, have a very similar kind of tone, and I think Star is Born is going to be put up for a lot of Oscars.
I would imagine, probably, yeah.
Maybe
Especially for
even
acting.
Best Picture, too.
Best Picture I could see, yeah. I think that'd be more of a stretch, but I could see it happening.
Yeah.
Back to what you were saying before with like the acting and stuff. I thought the acting was tremendous.
Oh, absolutely.
Bradley Cooper continued to kill it because I think he is an outstanding actor and seems to kill it in most of the stuff he is.
It was surprisingly real, some of his scenes he had. They were shockingly accurate and genuine. Same with Lady Gaga, I'd say, too.
Which was great because I know she's done some acting, like she's been in a couple seasons of American Horror Story. But seeing her in like this big movie that really relied on a lot of dramatic acting from her that if she didn't pull off would have definitely killed the movie.
Yeah.
And she just killed every single scene she was in. There wasn't a single moment where I don't think she was just taking charge of the scenes, and she was by far a standout. And up against some pretty big A-listers like Sam Elliott and Bradley Cooper, and she was
Alec
definitely
Baldwin
pulling her own. Yeah, Alec Baldwin had a brief cameo.
Yeah, and honestly, she's a star. That's the best way you could put it. She really showed herself as a star.
Yeah. I would say the original music, too, that they wrote for the film was tremendous. I know both of us have been listening to the soundtrack since then. And, I mean, you know when you're going to go see a movie that has Lady Gaga starring in it about musicians, you know she's going to kill it with the singing.
Right.
That's a given. And she did absolutely kill every single song she did. But Bradley Cooper, surprisingly, was really good at singing. And you mentioned that every single song in the movie, they
recorded live,
Yeah, which
I
was
respect.
tremendous.
Okay, here's something. With Greatest Showman, I love that movie. Thought it was great. The music was great, but they recorded it all in post and edited it heavily with drum machines and all that stuff, which kind of took me out of it. But this movie, it was all recorded live, and that's something I really like. Same with La La Land. That was recorded live, and I think it really shows how much better it is and more authentic. Oh, that's the other thing, the authenticity. There's a lot of like really cute, really awkward, kind of uncomfortable moments between the characters, like involving like the noses or the fake eyelashes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're just so awkward,
but they're so cute at the same. I don't know how to. Can you back me up on this?
No, yeah, I got you. Like, it's so real and believable, and you feel like you're really sitting there watching an actual couple's relationship develop and unfold, and you're there in a front row seat in the most intimate moments, and it feels real. It feels intimate, and I think that just goes to show how great both of the acting was by them, just how real and driven it was, but also just how exemplary Bradley Cooper directed those scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, well, not to spoil anything, but there's like a sex scene between the two early on, and the way that it's filmed is unremarkably real and incredibly intimate and passionate, and it makes you a little uncomfortable because you feel like you really are watching this very intense moment between these two individuals.
Yeah, I remember in the theater we both looked at each other and went like, "Wow, that just feels too real." It's surprising. They really nailed it with the authenticity in the film and just everything about. Is there anything you didn't like about it?
I thought the pacing was near
weird.
the end a little bit was a little rough because the beginning is so slow and sets up the character so much, which you need to do.
Right.
But the second and third act, every scene is like a couple months ahead of the last scene.
Yeah, it just montages through everything, and I kind of want to slowly see their relationship develop and all that.
Yeah, so I would say the pacing was the only thing I'd say was a little bit rough. But other than some of the dialogue between Sam Elliott and Bradley Cooper specifically was very hard to understand. It was very hard to see what was going on at the scenes because they both had such thick accents.
Right.
That was only like 2 scenes out of the whole movie, so it's very barely a complaint.
Yeah, the only complaints I would say are like we said, pretty minor.
Yeah, but I will say I do think something that is worth mentioning before we end this is this is Bradley Cooper's directorial debut.
Yeah.
This movie was tremendously shot, tremendously directed. For a directorial debut, I think it was nothing short of remarkable what he was able to pull off, and I am super interested to see anything he does in the future, regardless of acting or directing, because I think he clearly has not only the acting talents but the vision. As one of the best directed movies I've seen all year, and it's just some of the shots like of her on stage and him on stage. It's just it was shot so well, and like we talked about before with like the intimate scenes between them, not just the sex scene, but just like them and their like cute moments.
Yeah,
is shot in such a way where you feel like you're sitting in there with them, and you're just like he did such a good job with like conveying that feeling, and it was I can't speak more highly of his directing.
It reminds me of John Krasinski actually with The Quiet Place.
Yeah, he did pretty well.
He starred in that, he directed it, and I thought it was just an excellent example of both.
Yeah. So I'd say for ending thoughts, I would definitely give it a 9 out of 10.
I would absolutely agree.
10.
I would give it a 9 out of 10.
So, well, thank you so much. If anyone wants to see more podcasts, go to Makunema.com or Makunema at YouTube.com or Makunema at SoundCloud.com for a wide variety of podcasts, including a fully unabridged version of this review.
With spoilers.
And so, everyone, thank you so much and have a good one.
Bye. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, then we talk about it.
On this episode, we will be reviewing the recent released movie Venom, directed by Ruben Fletcher and starring Tom Hardy, Michelle Williams, Riza Ahmed, and Scott Hayes.
And in this show, we will not be talking about spoilers. If you want to hear the full unabridged version, check out Cineplexion Reflection Unabridged on Makunema at SoundCloud.com. All right. So my name's Kyle.
And my name's Noah.
What do we think about this one?
I didn't think it was as bad as everyone was making it out to be beforehand. Okay. I thought that a lot of the reviews and such were saying it was basically going to be like the worst movie ever. And it definitely wasn't like, oh my God, that was fantastic, but it wasn't terrible. I thought it was okay. I also think that was especially because I had such low expectations, but I was okay with it. I probably wouldn't watch it again, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I think we all started off with high expectations.
Yeah, I would agree.
When it was rated R.
Rated R, and it was supposed to be a body horror movie too.
Yeah, because you could tell that some things were meant to be R, but they were cut in post.
Yeah.
And I think they would have looked cooler if they were rated R.
Well, they claim there was never a rated R cut. That's what they say now. But who knows? Yeah, I thought the story I thought was okay overall. They definitely could have done a lot better with the script. I liked some things, but I think the worst part about the story was I won't spoil what it is, but near the end of the movie, you can clearly tell a huge chunk of the movie was cut out because it just goes from like character it just changes on a dime, and it's like, oh, clearly there was stuff here that I just missed that they just cut out of the movie, and that was one of the worst parts, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if many people share the same opinion as me, but one of the worst parts of the movie, in my opinion, was the Venom voice. I know Tom Hardy did do the voice. And
He did? I know.
Yeah. To me, it sounded like just a cheesy, like, movie trailer guy kind of voice. Like a stock voice almost. And when I first heard it, I was like, wait, are you serious? I didn't expect it. I didn't know that Venom talked at all in the movie. I thought it was Tom Hardy just kind of battling with himself. So that came as a weird surprise to me, and I did not like it very much.
That's fair. I will say something I did like was I actually really did like the relationship between Eddie Brock and Venom. I thought it was actually pretty funny, and I liked their like back and forth throughout the movie.
Yeah,
I thought that was the highlight for me personally, and I honestly thought Tom Hardy still did a pretty good job, even though the rest of the movie wasn't very good.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Tom Hardy was awesome. I liked a lot of the the action and stuff. Kind of like up there with Predator. Like there was like pretty decent action throughout the whole thing, and like the stuff with Venom ripping people's faces off and getting, crazy. I thought that was all like super interesting for a sort of a superhero movie kind of thing.
I agree.
Especially PG-13 now.
Yeah.
Regarding the beginning, I wasn't as big as a fan of the movie as Noah was, but the intro where Eddie Brock was running around, like, what was it? How do you say that? He was like exposing political figures and all these social issues and everything.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, really?
You didn't like it?
It just seemed really weird.
Yeah.
Like, I get what they're going for, where he's like this big time, but it just, the way they did it to me just seemed really, like, I don't know, it just felt very, like, not well done. It didn't look very good to me.
To me, I was, like, really interested in that, but then they cut it and they never mention it at all throughout the rest of the movie. It's just about Venom. So, if it was a movie about that, I'd be more interested, but it was weird that they did it and then just cut it.
Yeah, it's true. So, overall, I thought that the movie, like I said, I don't think it was as bad as everyone made it out to be. I also thought that, like I said, I thought the directing was alright, the acting I thought was decent, and overall I just think it was just a weak script and a lackluster thing, and I think it didn't help that the movie seemed like they kept changing the direction in post-production, and it just didn't work.
I think that's all the movies we review that we don't like. I think it's an issue with the script changing too much.
That was definitely a Predator.
Definitely Predator.
But, yeah, so overall, I'd say I give it a 5 out of 10.
I'm leaning towards a 4.
Nice.
Well, yeah. So, thank you for watching, or listening, rather. If you want to hear the full version, check out Cineplexion Reflection Unabridged on SoundCloud.
All right, thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the movies, watch a movie, and we talk about it.
On this episode, we will be reviewing Halloween 2018, the sequel to the original Halloween back in the 70s, directed by David Gordon Green, with cast including Jamie Lee Curtis returning from the original, Judy Greer, Andy Matichek, and James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers.
Wonderful. And in this podcast, we do not have spoilers. If you want to hear the full unabridged version, check out Cineplexion Reflection Unabridged. So, what do we think?
I loved it. I
did
thought
love
it was
too.
amazing. I thought it lived up to the hype. I thought it was a great sequel to the original. All around, it was great.
So, is it supposed to be a sequel to the original directly?
It's a sequel. It's a sequel only to Halloween 1.
Okay.
The original from like the 70s.
And that's the only one I've seen.
Yeah, that's so. Any of the like 11 after that are just not canon.
Okay. Are you in the same boat? How many Halloween movies have you seen?
I've seen one, and I've seen the remake in 2009 with Rob Zombie.
Okay. Yeah. So, just a basic plot. We'll go over the details. So, Mike Myers
escapes from prison, and he's going on a killing spree.
He's trying to specifically kill Laurie Strode, who was his pseudo nemesis from the first Halloween, but this time she's much more prepared. She's been preparing her whole life for the day Michael Myers comes back after her, and that is this Halloween, this night.
Yep.
In this Halloween movie. So I would say to start off talking, I thought the acting was pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters who weren't Jamie Lee Curtis's character of Laurie Strode, the actors did okay. None of the characters I was blown away with their acting. I was like, nah, okay. This is a decent acting, not bad. But Jamie Lee Curtis, I thought, absolutely killed it.
Oh, yeah.
She was such like the femme fatale like heroine in this movie. And I was super impressed. I thought her character was incredible.
Yeah. She was awesome. I'm trying to think. Just throughout the whole movie, she was just so cool the whole time. Just always had a gun. She was just ready to kick butt, you know?
And I thought this movie did a fantastic job of feeling like a 2018 version of a classic slasher movie,
Yes.
but also still feeling like a classic slasher movie. Like with
Absolutely.
juicy, odd dialogue, some odd effects that are just like how people die in some scenes. But to me, it felt like it was like half the movie is like 70s slasher, but the other half of the movie is like 2018 slasher. And I thought it was a beautiful fusion of the two.
It did feel like an older movie when I was watching it.
And that's what I said, in a good way.
I was very pleasantly surprised. Yeah, when I first started rolling, it used the original Halloween credits.
Yep.
Where it was orange fade to red, and it looked tremendous. I was so happy.
It was so good.
Same music.
Yep.
Also, John
Which
Carpenter.
is iconic. The theme is iconic.
It is. And he redid it too. He made some other adjustments. He took the original score and I think even made it better with adapting it to the new version of the movie. For some other parts of the movie too, so what didn't you like about the movie?
Good question. I would say I thought the doctor character was a little bit odd. I think my biggest thing with the doctor character is I think it would have worked really well if they gave him more screen time and gave him more of an explanation to some of his actions, kind of gave you a little bit more depth into his mind, or just removed his part to very little. I felt like they found like a weird middle ground where it just didn't work. Either give him basically nothing and take away a lot of the stuff he did and found other ways to get around it, or explain him a lot more in depth, because his character just seemed odd and thrown in there to me.
Yeah,
I would say it's the only thing I was like really like,
he just randomly in the second half kind of became a prominent character.
Well, he was also the one that freed Michael Myers in the beginning.
Yeah.
He's the one that breaks him out.
Yeah. He was, but like all of his actions come out in the second half.
Yeah.
Or motives rather, and it fell out of place. But there were a couple of things I didn't like. I just want to go over.
Yep.
Right in the beginning, a lot of the beginning had really fast-paced editing, and I felt like they could have stretched it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was just really focusing on the editing, and I really like slow movies personally.
Yeah,
and it was just
they work really well.
some of the beginning was quick, just in the way they cut it. I feel like they could have let the shots go on longer, but once they got to the scene in the window, I think you know what shot I'm talking about. That shot lasts for about a minute, and is that much of a spoiler?
No.
So there's a shot.
You're not talking about the long shot, are you? Where it's like him tracking him to the houses? Because I thought that was tremendous.
No, that was good, but it was a long take where it's just sitting in front of the window, and you see the woman walk up to the window.
Oh, no, I like that shot. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible.
Oh, okay.
So once I got to that part, I'm like, all the shots are way too quick. That shot lasted like a full minute. Mike Myers walks up to the window, looks into it, then he leaves. You see a woman walk up, then you see her leave. You see Mike Myers walking in the background, then you see her walking back, then you see him come up, and that's when he stabs her.
See, I slightly disagree.
That was one take.
Because I don't think that was the one. There was the long shots before that.
There were?
When he gets the knife. He walks around to the shed. He hits the guy with the hammer.
That's true. There were those.
Gets the
long
knife
takes.
in the kitchen. Almost kills the baby. And it's like the whole time it's tracking him to the house.
Yeah. Okay, that's
and that
true,
happened
actually.
before the window scene because he already had. That's how he got the knife again.
That's true.
So I would say I do agree with it. It switches from fast to slow, but I just don't think that was the scene that
That's true.
started it.
But that scene did blow me away regardless.
That was awesome. I love long shots. They're tremendous.
Yeah. But the other thing that I did not like, it was really good the whole time, as like a horror movie. It wasn't cliche or anything, but there's some character actions and motivations at the end
Yeah.
that I didn't agree with, like very cliche horror movie kind of thing.
But I think that was the intent, because I think they were still trying to keep the classic horror movie vibe.
Oh.
That's how I perceive it, because I've heard a lot of complaints about that.
Okay.
But personally, I liked it, the cliche stuff, because I thought it's a throwback. It's a 70s slasher movie in 2018.
Okay.
I thought they kept that on purpose. That's my personal view. I
Yeah.
can see why people don't like it because of that.
Yeah.
Because people are more accustomed, more like adept.
Yeah, like smarter
Whatever.
characters. In movies.
Yeah, but I think this is. I'm not trying to dispute you.
I know, I do agree, because in the end, the characters' actions are justified, and I think you can argue why they did certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, okay, that was stupid, but then at the same time, I was like, I guess I can see it. So it did work. It did work. Oh, my view is changing now. I'm liking the movie more that we're talking about it.
See, that's how it goes. So I'd say overall, I give the movie a 9.
I give it an 8.
8. That's solid. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. If you want to hear the full version, check out Cineplexion Reflection Unabridged, and that is on SoundCloud.
And YouTube.
Yeah, check out Makunema Productions.
On both. And then thank you so much, and have a good night.
Have a great one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch movies, then we talk about it.
On this episode, we will be reviewing several short films from the Buffalo Dreams Fantastic Film Festival.
My name's Kyle.
My name's Noah.
All right, and let's get started. So,
The first one was Space Force,
Space Force.
which is one that you starred in.
I did. I did a boot camp over the summer. I acted in it, and I worked on crew. I did cinematography for that.
I thought it was really good. You could tell it was like obviously just like a backyard production, but for a backyard production, it was
Literally backyard.
yeah, it was legitimately funny.
Yeah.
I thought there was some actual laugh out loud moments. I thought the acting was actually pretty good in it.
Well, thank you. But that was fun. It's basically a parody on the Space Force fighting in space. We're basically training to be soldiers in space. It's a total farce. It was a lot of fun to make, and some of the jokes landed. I thought it was pretty amusing.
And then the next one was Once Around Is Never Enough, which is a documentary about,
North Tonawanda carousels.
and I thought production value-wise, phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Rivaled any documentary I've actually ever seen. It was tremendous. Looked great. Was well above all every other short we saw in terms of production value. I just thought it was a little too long.
Yes.
It was a bit long to watch carousels, I'll be honest. I had some trouble near the end.
You're right. It's a subject that's not entirely interesting. That is my hometown. We're right next to my hometown, so it was cool seeing about where I'm from, but at the same time, no one really wants to hear that much about carousels. So,
And then the next one we have is Aftercare, which was a very experimental animated film, which out of the group we were with, Kyle, you were, I think, the one solely who loved it.
I am the sole person who loved it. It was an RIT animated short. Essentially, all of the footage, or all of the scenes, were just really obscure, close-up, kind of abstract imagery. Some of it was sexual, some was about food. It was really hard to tell. The audio, though, that was the most uncomfortable part. It was a lot of moaning and cracking and rubbing all these different innuendo noises.
I thought they did the experimental part well. They did their goal was to make people uncomfortable, and they did it. And the animation looked really good.
Yeah.
It was animated really well. So I would say in that sense it was good. I couldn't
Yeah.
grab it like you could.
Sure, I saw you cringing a bit,
I cringed quite a bit, yeah.
and I was cringing too, but I kind of liked it.
Fair enough. And then the final one was, then we have Unbridled.
Unbridled.
Not the final one, I misspoke. I did not like Unbridled.
I
For a low budget
sorry.
production, it was bad for that.
Yeah. What's the basic plot of it that we can kind of?
The basic plot was like a lonely guy who it seemed like his wife or girlfriend had died, and he was just kind of like stuck in the house and was kind of getting his pleasures in odd ways.
He's pretending to be handicapped, I believe.
Yeah, that was like
So that attorneys or lawyers would come in to review
they're
him.
like insurance agents.
Insurance agents, yeah. and he would ride on their back to the bathroom, and for some reason, they got him off, and I didn't really exactly follow. It was
very odd, and I mean, you pointed out most of them because you have a more keen eye for that. But if you want to list off some of the videography problems that you saw with it,
it was just the production. It was clearly shot on like a camcorder,
which isn't a bad thing.
Right.
That's all you have. That's all you have.
but it's like the lighting was off, so you couldn't see certain things. They crossed the 180 line multiple times. There was just really bad shots. Certain things didn't make sense. Like they had like a security footage kind of shot in the guy's house.
Which it was so out of place, and they never went back. And they never referred to it.
That also just like a small minor thing. It's like the record symbol was white and it wasn't even blinking. It'd be so easy just to make it red. It's just certain things like that.
And also too, it was just. It seemed like they were stuck between trying to make a semi-drama and just making like a weird like, haha, we're strange, and they couldn't really decide which one it is. So it just ends up being not good at either.
Yeah.
And it was just okay. And there was just the shot, the angles were bad, the audio was really bad.
Yeah, the audio was rough.
It was really like crackly.
It looked like one of your first kind of films that you make.
Yeah. And then the final one was Test of Faith, which was a movie that was actually filmed in 1983.
Yes.
And then just finally released now. So that's very interesting.
It was shot on film, or no, videotape.
Videotape, yeah.
Videotape, 3/4 inch or something like that.
I don't remember the detail.
Yeah. I thought, see, watching it at first, I couldn't figure out the style. I was like, is this in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or even early 2000s? The style looked so interesting. I couldn't tell if it was shot now and meant to look old or if it was old. I just assumed it was shot now because it came out just now.
That was I thought too. I thought the foundation of the story was great.
Yes.
The foundation is basically the way they survive the apocalypse is one guy pretends to be a religious figure to convince people to follow him as he's basically like a disciple of God, and then robs the people by basically telling them, I'm a disciple of God, give me everything you have.
Yeah.
So robs people in that way. I thought that was incredibly interesting. It was a great foundation.
This is like during the apocalypse kind of thing.
Yeah.
When crazy people are running about.
And I just thought that the foundation was great. The execution was kind of poor, but they still pulled a lot of things out that really I thought were cool. Especially the conclusion had a moment in it which I thought was fantastic that really brought the whole thing together. But I thought the whole intro was just a bit too long, and there was a lot of unnecessary. It was just odd. It didn't really work.
Too confusing in the beginning. I didn't really know where the story was going, and it made me more confused throughout because the intro was just kind of bizarre.
If we had to rank them, I think we should both say our rankings of the 5. So I would say my favorite was probably I'm going to say Once Around Is Never Enough. It's not my cup of tea in terms of like the content, but just the way it looked, how it was made, was absolutely tremendous.
Best production value. Yeah.
Space Force, because it was just the best content, I thought.
Thank you.
And then I thought probably Test of Faith, because like I said, I really loved the foundation. I thought it was such a great premise. And for an 80s movie, they did a really good job for back in 83. And then I thought Aftercare, just because the animation was gorgeous. It just wasn't really my thing. And then Unbridled, which I did not like at all. I can't really find any redeeming qualities about it, to be honest.
True.
What about you? What's your 5?
It's tough to rank them in order, but I would say best production value definitely goes to Is It Never Enough? That one, best value. I think Test of Faith and then Welcome to Space Force are kind of tied for my number 1, though, for just in terms of working on Space Force. I thought that was a lot of fun, so I enjoyed that one, and I love the jokes in it, and just the overall farce of a Space Force idea. And Test of Faith, I love the story, and I thought it visually looked pretty interesting.
They did a good job cinematography-wise, for sure.
Yeah, and then I like Aftercare, so that's next, and I think Unbridled.
You didn't like Unbridled?
I didn't,
But fair enough. All right, well, thank you so much. Be sure to check out local film festivals in your town as well.
Yeah, check them out. And if you want to hear the full unabridged version, then go to Makunema at SoundCloud.com.
And YouTube.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, and then we talk about it.
On this week's episode, we will be reviewing Sorry to Bother You, the recently released on Blu-ray film by Boots Riley, starring Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Jermaine Fowler, and Omar Hardwick.
In this show, we don't talk about spoilers. It's a quicker version with just the overview. If you want the full unabridged version with spoilers, then check out Cineplexion Reflection Unabridged. All right, so I'm Kyle.
I'm Noah.
What do we think?
I loved it.
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
it was weird, wacky, but just like incredibly fascinating.
Oh yeah, it was probably one of the strangest movies I've seen. Although it had that narrative element, but it was also very quirky and bizarre at the same time, but it worked.
I agree. I thought that it definitely had, to me, it felt very heavily Spike Lee inspired.
It did.
It felt like a Spike Lee movie with the wackiness, the camera shots, and just overall quality. But also kind of threw in some like weird David Lynch-esque
Yeah.
situations throughout the film.
I would say visually it's a very Spike Lee style, but just its theme, I guess, of taking a narrative and making it strange is David Lynch.
Yeah. I thought the story was great. My only issue with the story was I thought the third act got a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
And my biggest reason for that is there's some not as big plots, but definitely some sizable ones that I felt like just got dropped with no real conclusion in the third act. So I was a little disappointed by that, and it just so much goes on in the third act. It was very all over the place, and it was very like, okay, but what's going on here? What's this? And I thought just the third act kind of fell through for me a little bit, but other than that, I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the first two acts, because at the start of the movie, you know it's quirky, but you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. Like, it's so out there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like it's a slightly more grounded version of Idiocracy, I feel like.
I haven't seen it.
It's just like where the whole world is just like idiots, and then one dude who's kind of an idiot in normal times
Okay.
is like a genius to them. And that's kind of how the movie felt at times, like with how wacky the world is and how every character just kind of accepts it.
Yeah.
Like that was something I thought was so interesting. Is like this world is so screwed up that they live in, but everyone's just like, yeah, it's just the world.
Yeah.
And that was like really interesting.
I find the alternate universe really interesting, though, too. Because it's just kind of like regular time, except things are different. Like, for example, the most popular TV shows, I got the crap kicked out of me, where you basically get beat up on camera and thrown into a vat of poop, possibly.
Yeah, that's what happened to him.
Yeah, and there's what was the other? I remember he kept flipping through all the television programs, and there were only 3 things. Oh, and then one was a commercial for, what is it, Carefree? Or Worry Free. And it's literal slave labor, but people kind of just accept it. And then the other thing is news protest, and there's a lot of protesting.
Yeah.
It's very similar to our world, but it's really blatant in your face. Like, this is slave labor. This is literal, like, beating people up. But the symbolism still works, and it's subtle but very obvious. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to explain.
No, I understand completely. It's like the themes and the reflection of real life are very apparent, but it doesn't really beat you over the head. Like the movie stands alone as this great story, this great visual like interpretation, but overall the real life issues are still very apparent that he's showing in this film. But I thought I also thought the score was tremendous.
Yeah, that was cool.
I loved the music in the movie. It was awesome. It was used so well in each shot.
Oh, yeah.
And I also thought the cinematography was
Oh, yeah.
out of the world great. For basically being his first movie, Boots Riley did such a good job with it.
It was super creative, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's talking on the phone as a telemarketer, and then every time he talks to someone and connects, the desk plops into into wherever that person is. And it's just the way it's done is so creative and, like, bizarre.
Yeah, and it was a really cool way to show the scenes of, like, him calling the people is just, like, him in there, like, really actually, like, interacting with these people.
Right.
And it definitely involves some pretty interesting work. But
Oh, yeah.
I think that I said cinematography was great, directing was great. The acting, I thought all of the actors killed it in the movie. Tessa Thompson, I thought was the standout. I thought she did such a good job. And it was very funny seeing her in Thor Ragnarok and seeing her in this because she plays vastly different characters.
I didn't recognize her.
Yeah, she does a good job just kind of blending into whatever role she does. But I thought she killed it. The main actor, Lakeith Stanfield, I thought did a tremendous job. Especially for being someone who is relatively unknown. The only thing I know of him is Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And he plays kind of a similar character, like just this like wacky kind of weirdo. More wacky than in this. Like this guy's still kind of grounded, but I just thought it was great. And there's just the characters in the movie in general are so great. There was not a single forgettable character.
Oh yeah.
Everyone was just fantastic. Stephen Yeun did a great job.
He did.
He was super interesting.
Yeah, and I love the voices, the white people voices.
Yeah, David Cross and Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, that was a lot of great celebrity just cameos and stuff.
Yeah, I thought there's that one guy with the eye patch and the mutton chops. Like, it's just every character is just so unique and interesting. It was like such an interesting world that you just wanted like more of it.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I personally want this to win Oscars. We were talking about this, and it's probably so bizarre and kind of indie that it won't be nominated.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
Which really upsets me because I would argue that this could be a Best Picture movie. I would love a world where this was one Best Picture.
That would be interesting. I don't think it will not be nominated.
No.
I don't think that. I don't think it did very well in the box office either. It had a fairly limited release, and it's just one of those niche movies that it's going to be really hard to find an audience, which is sad because it's so well deserving of one.
Right.
But overall, I think I would give it a 9 out of 10.
I would say the same thing.
So
9 out of 10.
yeah. So overall, great movie. Recommend check it out. It's out on Blu-ray now.
Oh, sweet.
And Boots Riley is pushing for people to buy it.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully on VHS.
yeah, they're talking about doing a VHS release. So
That'd be cool.
thank you so much for listening. If you want to check out more unabridged podcasts, go to makunema.com. Check out the SoundCloud and check out our YouTube. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Hello everyone and welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show we go to the local theater, we watch a movie, then we talk about it. There are no spoilers in this show as it's an abridged version. If you want the full, unedited version, check out Makunema's SoundCloud or YouTube. My name is Kyle, and today we are reviewing Ralph Breaks the Internet. So this film is a sequel to Wreck-It Ralph. It came out in the past couple of weeks. It was directed by Phil Johnston and Rich Moore. And it's featuring John C. Reilly, Sarah Silverman, Gal Gadot, and Taraji P. Henson. So this film, as a sequel, it's tough to top Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph is an excellent animated film, and it's probably up there with one of my top animated films. So having a sequel to that it's difficult because it's either going to sink or it's going to do really well. In my opinion, I thought Ralph Breaks the Internet was incredible. I wasn't sure how I would feel at first, but I thought it was an excellent movie. It was really well done, and it's just different from its predecessor. The original Wreck-It Ralph deals a lot with the theme of a hero or a bad guy trying to be a hero, and this movie deals more with friendship, moving on in life, and kind of accepting things for how they are instead of trying to fight the world. And I think it deals with those themes very excellently. For a kids movie, it's super mature, it's super funny, and it was just a blast, honestly. I saw it in an incredible AMC Disney Springs theater. It was my first time ever going. On my trip to Disney World, I checked it out. The theater had three layers to it. There was the bottom regular size theater and then two balconies above it, and the whole thing was full.
and just seeing a Disney movie in Disney was an incredible experience. There's a lot of inside jokes with Disney, and just hearing everyone around you laughing and freaking out it was just a fantastic experience. So for myself, seeing this movie, I think I had a little bit of bias. But a couple of things I want to say that were great. One, obviously Sarah Silverman as Vanellope and John C. Reilly as Ralph. They're both excellent characters. They're hilarious. And they're super well done for their universe. I think the whole idea of Wreck-It Ralph, well, I'll just go over the basic plot first. So, in Ralph Breaks the Internet, there is a new Wi-Fi router being put up inside the arcade, so Ralph and Vanellope go to the Wi-Fi router and they go into the internet. And instead of just individual arcade games, they have the option to see everything. The black web, websites, games online, tons of stuff, including eBay, Amazon, Google, plenty of other stuff. And the plot behind it is that Vanellope's game breaks, and they need a steering wheel to replace it, but the arcade owner isn't going to spend several $100s on it. So Ralph goes to the internet, goes to eBay to try and buy this wheel and win Vanellope's game back. I just think some of the best things about the movie is it keeps you entertained the whole time, but it's also, you can tell what the themes are, and you could tell just how well they're being portrayed. For example, one of the themes also, on top of friendship and moving on, is just change in the world. Where we saw a movie, the original one, about an arcade, which is kind of an outdated thing now with the internet. And then all of a sudden, Wi-Fi comes in. It's this whole new thing. There's a huge change. And we're seeing all of these old characters in an arcade adapting to a new situation and seeing them explore the internet and be amazed by it. Of course, there's tons of inside jokes. There's a lot of nods to Disney, other companies, and other websites. So it's just a blast. The whole movie's an absolute blast. And I do want to say, the best part about it is probably the credit scene. There's a mid-credit and an after-credit scene. I'm not going to spoil anything. If you want to hear the spoilers, that's in the full version. But I would watch it even just for those scenes because they made me die laughing. And they're probably, next to Deadpool 2, the best mid-credit and after-credit scenes that I've ever seen. But I think this was enough for tonight. I'll just wrap up by saying I'd give it around a 9 out of 10. Thought it was an excellent film. I would definitely see it again. It's just a blast overall. And if you want to hear the full version, like I said, go to Makunema at SoundCloud or on YouTube and check out Unabridged. Have a great day. See you next week.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a film, and then we talk about it. I'm Kyle, and this week Noah will not be joining us, but he is involved in this film, and I'd like to give him some mention. So, this week we decided to watch Among the Hemlocks and Other Fredonia Stories, which is a documentary produced by my professor, Rosalind Smith, and the head of the video production department at Fredonia. So this documentary talks about local Fredonia, gives a bunch of stories starting from early history to current. This includes how Fredonia is involved in the slave trade, how Fredonia was involved with things such as the Women's Liberation March, and how some murders happened here, and even up until the last legal hanging that occurred. So I would like to first preface this by saying there's a lot of Fredonians, whether they're students, teachers, or locals, that were part of this project, since of course it was directed and produced and written by Rosalind Smith.
Myself, myself and Noah, we had multiple crew positions throughout this film depending on the shoot. We attended 4 of the reenactment shoots, and those scenes included there was a Women's Liberation March was the first one. The second one was what's it called? A slave escaping, and how Eber Petit, a local farmer involved in the Underground Railroad, kept slaves safe. And then there was the Damon murder, which was when a man murdered his wife, and I got to play the doctor investigating the dead body in that scene. And then the man Damon, the next scene was his hanging, and that was played by Noah. So we were both involved a lot, whether it was assistant director, production assistant, gaffer, best boy, numerous different positions and skills that we had to use for the shoot. And I would like to thank Rosalind Smith. It was a great time and a wonderful, wonderful film. A couple things I'd like to say about the film were, first of all, the reenactments. I may have some bias having worked on them and acting in them. However, I think they were incredible. Even from an outside perspective, you can tell that she is excellent with camera work, and she really put a lot of time and thought into these shots individually. We filmed maybe around 6 hours for certain shoots, when only about 3 or 4 seconds of that footage was actually shown. The hanging in particular, I thought was excellent. The lighting, the smoke, everything was perfect. We saw Noah, he had put the noose around his neck, and then there was the shot of his feet dangling, and it looked so realistic. Same with my scene. We shot in Rosalind Smith's basement, and we set up a bedroom down there. We put a bed, dressers, fake blood all over the floor, and I thought that was just a really fun experience being able to play an 1800s doctor and kind of investigating this. But that scene particularly had this blue color scheme, and it was so visually pleasing, and I thought it was incredibly shot. The third scene was the slave scene, and I thought that was incredible because we shot in the studio, although if you just watched without knowing that, you would think it was a barn. There was hay everywhere, there was shovels and garbage cans against the door, and it looked just like a barn. So that was, the illusion was really well done, and it's funny to think that it wasn't a barn at all. It was a studio. It's always an interesting thing to see how behind the scenes movie magic works. And then the last one was the scene with the Women's Liberation March, and that included the most footage, and rightfully so, because it was all beautiful. Like the slave scene, you would think this was shot outside because it's women marching through like this foggy field, I guess you can say, but it's literally just shot in the studio in the dark with a fog machine rather. And a lot of these shots, it's just so empowering to women, which I think is very important right now. You see women, young, old, different races, just marching through proudly for their rights and for themselves to be powerful, and it's a really beautiful scene, especially having been part of it. It feels very enlightening to see on the screen. But that's enough of talking about my participation. Seeing the film as a whole, yeah, like I said, my participation was very slim. It was only those 4 scenes, which may have only been a few minutes at the most, or even a few shots. But for the rest of the film, I thought it was excellently paced. The only thing is, in the beginning, it kind of dragged a little bit, and maybe it was just me adjusting to the documentary. And of course, if you look at the early history of anything, it's kind of slow and dull and a little bit more boring. But like I said, I was just getting used to the documentary. Once it started going, I thought every story didn't go on for too long, which documentaries usually have an issue where they'll just stay on one story for way too long. It's great if it's a good story, but if you're not interested, then it feels like it's really dragging. But yeah, some stories were even very quick, like Mark Twain. That was only about 2 minutes total. Moved on to the next story. And I like that a lot about this documentary because it was only around 30 minutes, but it went by really decently quick. But let's see, some of the other stories were, okay, actually cut this right here. Overall, I thought it was excellently produced and just a great documentary made by my professor, and I would recommend it to others, and I hope it wins some awards and festivals, as it rightfully should. And this is, as far as I know, the only documentary about Fredonia and its stories, so it leaves a legacy to the school and town that we're currently in. I hope others see it in the future and others use it as a historical reference, as it rightfully is. Overall, I'd give this film a 9 out of 10. If you want to hear the full unabridged version, check out Makunema on SoundCloud or on YouTube. And I'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cineplexion Reflection Abridged, presented by Makunema Productions. In this show, we go to the local theater, watch a movie, and we talk about it. If you want the full unabridged version featuring spoilers, as this one does not feature spoilers, then check out Cineplexion Reflection Unabridged. So for this week, there wasn't time again to go to the theater, so we chose the 2018 Netflix film Chris Rock Tambourine. It's an hour-long comedy special. Essentially, Chris Rock takes the stage in Brooklyn for a comedy spilled special with observations of fatherhood, racism, American politics, and infidelity. It is obviously starring Chris Rock, and it was directed by Bo Burnham, which is interesting to see. All right, my name's Kyle. Let's get into the movie. So overall, I thought Tambourine was all right. It wasn't that great. When I initially went into it, I expected more of a comedy, and which is what you would think because it's a comedy special, but it was more about politics and more about race than comedy sketches or any kind of jokes. And I'm all right with that. I love watching political comedians and hearing things about important issues, but it didn't really have many laughing moments. There was a couple of parts that I thought were funny. There were some funny jokes, and it's always, Chris Rock is just such a lively person that it's entertaining to watch him in general. What I did like about Tambourine was a few of the issues he does talk about with race. There's some interesting points he brings up. For example, he talks about police a lot, police brutality and police shooting black people. And one of these things is he says that police should be paid more. He said police are underpaid for the work that they do, and you get what you pay for, which was it was a funny kind of stab at law enforcement, but it was also kind of on their side too, which I thought was very interesting in general. And I agree. I guess if police are paid more, and if also there's better regulations for who gets in the police force, we would have a much more effective and less racist police force. One of the things he also mentioned was that police officers, when shooting a black person, a lot of the the justification is that, not all police officers are bad, there's just a few bad apples. And I thought that was really funny because he goes into saying that no, they're not bad apples. A bad apple might be a little bit tart, or a bad apple is a kid who misbehaves. It's not at all a term for a murderer, which I thought was funny. He's like, a bad apple is such a sugar-coated term for a murderer, and that was also a really good point, which I thought was funny. And with that, talking about paying cops more and talking about stricter regulation for law enforcement. How do you let in a police officer who's going to do something that messed up? He compared it to pilots. It's like certain jobs, you can't have bad apples. You can't have people who aren't going to do their job right. Like a pilot or a doctor. Like a pilot isn't going to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to land the plane today. Or it's like, these people have to do their job or else a lot of lives are at risk or in stake. The other thing I found interesting, which is the title of the piece, Tambourine. He uses the tambourine as a metaphor towards the end of the show, which I felt like he should have talked about more towards the beginning. The whole time I was kind of waiting for why it was called Tambourine, because everything was, in the beginning especially, was very race restrictive. So I was confused why it was called Tambourine until later on he explains it. But that was a little problem I had. But when he goes into talking about Tambourine, he says that when you're in a relationship, it's a two-person thing. You can't move a couch with just one person. And he says you both have to serve each other and you have to put in 100% to the relationship or else it won't work. He said, like in a band, if you're a tambourine player, you have to play that tambourine. You have to own it and you have to be happy about it. Everyone's important and everyone makes the band. So his tambourine is his way of saying he has to put in 100% and have passion and basically love what he's doing. And then later on, he brings it up throughout the show a couple of times, just as a reference kind of thing. And I think it is a good metaphor to keep in mind. Playing the tambourine is important. You got to play the tambourine or else you're not going to have anything to do and you're just going to kind of die out. So you got to have passion in your life and you got to have a good work ethic and a lot of drive to get things done. But those are my general thoughts. So it was all right. There are a couple of takeaways from it, but overall, I had different expectations and it just didn't click. It was funny and it was amusing, but nothing really killed it for me. So I would give it probably a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Next week, we'll have something different for you, and I look forward to seeing you. Have a great night. Bye.